Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive here on the Deep Seek Diaries. Today, we're jumping into something really captivating. We're peeling back the layers of a book that, well, it's touched millions of lives around the world. Our mission today is an in-depth review, a real analysis of Don Miguel Ruiz's famous work, The Four Agreements, a practical guide to personal freedom. And for this deep dive, we didn't just, skim the book itself. We've really immersed ourselves in a whole stack of sources. We're mainly focusing on its Amazon product page, which sounds maybe dry, but it's actually packed. You've got the official book description, insights from the author himself, and then this huge ocean of customer reviews and comments, like over 100,000 people weighing in.
Yeah, it's incredible. It gives you this really rich, almost collective perspective. You see how it lands with actual readers, not just the theory.
Absolutely. So the book itself, The Four Agreements, it offers this, extraordinary promise, doesn't it? It's rooted really deeply in ancient Toltec wisdom, a philosophy that's both, profound but also super practical. And its core aim is basically to shine a light on where our self-limiting beliefs come from, the ones that hold us back, and show us how to stop suffering needlessly. And it offers this powerful, almost simple code of conduct.
Simple, but not easy, maybe.
Exactly. Simple concepts, hard to practice sometimes. But if you embrace it, the promise is like genuine personal freedom, real happiness, and experiencing unconditional love. And the impact, well, the numbers kind of speak for themselves, don't they? New York Times bestseller for 8 years straight, over 6 million copies sold just in the U.S.
Wow.
And translated into 40 languages worldwide. It's not just a book, it's a global phenomenon, a real testament to how much it resonates.
It really is compelling, how these ancient wisdom traditions, specifically the Toltec stuff, underpinning this book, how they still find so much relevance in, our pretty complex modern self-help world. There's just this undeniable pull, isn't there, towards insights that have lasted for centuries. They offer this kind of timeless grounding, a sort of foundational truth that feels maybe a bit lost sometimes in our fast-paced world. The huge popularity of the Four Agreements, it's not just a market trend. It really speaks to that deep human search for meaning, for inner peace, and, for a simply more authentic way to live, especially when we're drowning in information.
Before we go on, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and like the video. This podcast is known as the Deep Seek Diaries, and you can find us on the major social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Linked to the description section are all the resources in discussion today, including books, websites, and so on. Please go through our terms and conditions as soon as you can. Now sit back and enjoy the podcast. Okay, so let's start peeling back those layers. Let's get into the foundation of the Four Agreements, this Toltec wisdom itself. Don Miguel Ruiz, he's presented not just as an author, right, but as a shamanic teacher, a healer. He carries this lineage of ancient knowledge. And then you have Janet Mills, his editor, co-author. Her collaboration seems absolutely key in taking these, profound ancient teachings and making them understandable for us today.
Totally instrumental.
So when we talk about Toltec origins, it's not just abstract philosophy, is it?
No, not at all. This tradition really emphasizes practical, ancient, deeply spiritual teachings. It's wisdom meant to be lived, meant to be applied like every single day. But what does that actually mean for us now? That's the key question, isn't it? If you look back, the Toltecs were this ancient civilization in Mesoamerica. They were known as artists of the spirit. And their wisdom focused on this really revolutionary idea, how we create our own reality. Through our thoughts, our beliefs, the emotions we cultivate. Ruiz, he comes from this family line of Negal spiritual guides in this tradition, and he translates this really sophisticated understanding into principles that are incredibly accessible, actionable. The focus isn't theory for theory's sake. It's practical, immediate application, like right now. It's about noticing that constant internal dialogue, and the subconscious agreements we make with ourselves, with others, these invisible contracts that shape how we see everything, how we interact with the world. It's like looking at the architecture of your own mind.
That difference between theory and practice is so important. And it really sets us up for the first agreement. Be impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
Now, impeccable, it's easy to misunderstand that, right? Like striving for perfection, never making a mistake.
Yeah, always saying the perfect thing.
But what does it really mean here?
It's way deeper than just being correct. In the Toltec way, impeccable means without sin. But sin here isn't about, moral judgment. It means against oneself. So being impeccable with your word means taking total responsibility for what you say and do, acting without judgment, without blame. especially towards yourself. It's this deep commitment to integrity, aligning your inner truth with how you express yourself outside. And what's really striking is how Ruiz talks about the power of words, almost magical. They're not just sounds, they're like seeds. They literally shape our reality, both internally, our self-talk, those stories we tell ourselves, and externally in how we communicate with everyone else.
Yeah.
Every word, even just in your head, carries this vibration, this intent. It's a seed for what you experience. So being impeccable means choosing those seeds carefully, using language consciously to create, to uplift, to speak truth and love, not to tear down or harm or spread negativity. It's realizing your words have creative force.
It really is like a daily practice of conscious creation. And you see this echoed so clearly in the customer reviews. There's one from Nuno Picareta. He put it perfectly. Speak with integrity and use words to uplift, not harm. So concise, but so deep.
Nails it.
So the practical side of this first agreement, it touches everything, doesn't it? Your self-talk, how you build relationships. It's like the foundation for creating a reality based on truth, authenticity, positive energy. It really makes you think, how often do we use words, maybe without even meaning to cast shadows instead of light?
Exactly. And that brings up a tough question for a lot of us, right? If our words really are that powerful, how much accidental damage do we cause? To ourselves,
Yes.
to others, through careless language, maybe gossip, or just that relentless negative self-talk that so many of us struggle with. This agreement, it's not just a nice idea. It's a real challenge. It asks us to become masters of our own dialogue, inside and out, to really get that our words are like spells, constantly shaping the reality we live in. It's about using that power with respect, with intention.
Words are like spells. That's a powerful way to frame it. Makes you pause before you speak, or even think. Okay, building on that idea of managing our inner world, let's move to the second agreement. Don't take anything personally. Ruiz says something pretty provocative here. He calls taking things personally the maximum expression of selfishness, because he argues it assumes everything, absolutely everything is about me.
This one, for so many people, it's incredibly freeing, maybe one of the most impactful. The core idea is simple. When someone says something negative or criticizes you or even praises you, their words, their actions, they're almost always a reflection of their own world, their beliefs, their fears, their mood, their baggage. Not really about you. When we internalize that negativity, make it about us, we're basically inviting suffering into our lives, unnecessary suffering. It's like we accept their emotional poison as our own.
Yeah, you drink it right down.
Right. And the beauty of this agreement is the detachment it offers. By choosing not to make everything about us, we free ourselves from being this reactive target for other people's stuff. And crucially, from our own self-inflicted pain. It's realizing you're not the center of everyone else's universe. And that understanding, it gives you huge emotional freedom, sovereignty.
And you think about real-world situations. This can be totally transformative. Relationships, work interactions, even just dealing with random strangers. Imagine if every time someone cut you off in traffic, or a colleague said something dismissive, or a loved one was just having a bad day and snapped. Imagine if you didn't automatically internalize it, didn't make it mean something about you.
Yeah.
It could completely change your emotional health, reduce stress massively, alter how you interact with people. It's like building an emotional shield, not out of coldness, but just understanding. You're not responsible for their feelings, and their reactions aren't necessarily about you. It's powerful self-preservation.
It creates so much emotional space, a buffer zone. When you genuinely start taking things personally, you become kind of immune to that emotional poison people might sling around, accidentally or on purpose. And that lets you stay calm, centered, non-reactive. Instead of getting defensive or doubting yourself, you can respond with clarity, maybe compassion, or sometimes just detachment, which is absolutely vital for keeping your inner peace and maintaining healthy boundaries in all your relationships. You observe, you don't absorb.
That immunity to emotional poison sounds incredibly appealing, which leads us pretty naturally to the third agreement, don't make assumptions. This one hits home for so many people, I think, because it highlights the dangers of unspoken expectations, those interpretations we make up, especially in close relationships. We fill in the blanks with our own stories, and usually those stories are based on our fears, our past hurts, not reality.
This agreement really shines a light on that human tendency to guess rather than ask. And what's really key here is the emphasis on clear, direct communication as the antidote. Most misunderstandings, conflicts, all that pointless drama, it comes directly from assumptions we make about what people mean, what they're thinking, why they did that, what their intentions are. Instead of just asking for clarification or saying what we need or checking if we understood, we jump to conclusions. or our minds invent these elaborate stories that are often miles away from the truth, Ruiz just urges us, ask, engage in dialogue, cut through the ambiguity instead of assuming.
And the impact of assumptions, you see this in the Kindle highlights people make in the comments. It's huge. Ruiz suggests this habit of assuming can lead to living a life of pretense, like you're constantly performing, driven by this fear of not being good enough, this need to please others. We assume what they want, then we run ourselves ragged trying to meet that imaginary standard instead of just being authentic and saying our truth.
It becomes this exhausting cycle, right? Depletes your self-worth, leads to deep dissatisfaction. Yeah, it's a really sharp insight into how we subconsciously sabotage ourselves and block real connection. When we assume, we create this fantasy in our heads about how things should be, and then we try to live in the fantasy instead of dealing with reality as it is. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much mental and emotional energy do we waste trying to mind read, predict, second-guess people, when a simple, direct conversation could clear it all up, free up all that energy for something better, like actually creating something?
Probably a lot of energy. And yeah, it's a sobering thought. Which brings us to the fourth agreement, the last one. And it kind of pulls the others together. Always do your best. This one's so important because it's not about perfectionism, not about being 100% all the time. It's about consistent, mindful effort with compassion. The core idea, as Ruiz puts it, put in your best effort in every moment without self-judgment.
And what's really nuanced here is the understanding of your best. Ruiz gets that it's not some fixed point. It's dynamic. It changes moment to moment, day to day, depending on what's going on. Your best when you're feeling great, rested, healthy. It's going to look way different than your best when you're sick, exhausted, stressed out.
Totally different.
And the real power, the freedom in this agreement is accepting that variation without beating yourself up. No self-judgment. It's about giving what you actually have to give right now without comparing it to yesterday's peak or some ideal future best. It's about being present and accepting where you are.
And accepting that dynamic nature of your best is so empowering. It shifts the focus away from external results or comparing yourself to others and puts it on internal satisfaction. Continuous growth. When you commit to doing your best, whatever that means right now, you build this deep integrity with yourself. Doesn't matter what the outcome is or what others think, you know you showed up fully, gave what you could give in that moment.
Yeah, that inner knowing is key. It leads to real satisfaction, builds resilience, sparks growth. It takes away that crushing pressure to always be at some fake 100% and replaces it with the freedom to just be your best as you are right now.
And this agreement really does integrate the others, doesn't it? Like the keystone in an arch. If you're really trying to be impeccable with your word and you're not taking things personally and you're consciously avoiding assumptions, then doing your best naturally follows and supports those principles. It allows you to put in real effort without carrying all that baggage of self-criticism or needing approval or getting drained by conflict. It builds this deep inner peace and strength because your worth isn't tied to a perfect outcome anymore. It's tied to the integrity of your effort. Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the people behind this work. Don Miguel Ruiz's own story is pretty remarkable. Not your typical author journey. Youngest of 13 kids, born into a family steeped in these ancient Toltec healing traditions. But he didn't jump right into that. He actually went a very modern route first. Got a medical degree in Mexico City, became a neurosurgeon, practiced with his brother in Tijuana. Fascinating contrast, right? Ancient healing and modern brain surgery.
It really is. And then there was this huge turning point, this life-changing event, a near-fatal car crash. That experience apparently made him leave medicine entirely. And as the source material puts it, it forced him to examine the essential truth about life and humanity. It was that trauma, that profound event, that led him back to his family roots. Rediscovering those ancient teachings with his mother, who was a curandera, a healer. That whole journey from Western medicine looking at the physical brain to ancient wisdom exploring the mind, consciousness. It's an amazing story of personal transformation.
Right.
You could almost think his neurosurgery work, literally looking at the physical brain, gave him a unique perspective on the virtual world of the mind and these agreements we hold. Maybe not just culturally, but even neurologically.
And that unique background definitely shaped his approach.
Yeah.
He has this amazing knack for blending ancient Toltec stories and mythology with ideas from modern physics and just really practical common sense.
Yeah, that blend is key.
And that mix is what led him create what the source calls a new philosophy for seekers of truth and personal authenticity.
Yeah.
It's not just old teachings dusted off. It's like this living bridge between ancient wisdom and how we understand things today. Makes it super relatable, actionable, relevant for people now who might otherwise find this stuff, a bit inaccessible.
It does make you wonder, though, how someone with that strong scientific background, neuroanatomy even, reconciles these seemingly different worlds, ancient mysticism and modern science. It suggests maybe a deeper understanding, a personal insight perhaps, that the physical and spiritual aren't as separate as we often think. His time as a neurosurgeon gives him this unique lens to look at the mind's virtual world and the agreements shaping our reality. It really speaks to universal truths, no matter how you explore them.
And then there's Janet Mills. Her contribution is just as vital. You can't really separate it from the book's success and lasting impact. She's not just an editor. She founded Amber Allen Publishing, and she's co-author of the whole Toltec Wisdom series. Her role in getting this out there is huge.
Absolutely. She's more than a publisher. She's clearly a visionary, been championing this kind of transformative wisdom for decades. You look at what else she's published, Deepak Chopra's 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, the Seth books by Jane Roberts, which were foundational for a lot of New Age thinking.
Right, big names.
That track record shows a real commitment, a real eye for spotting genuinely impactful spiritual work and getting it to a wider audience.
Yeah, it definitely feels like more than just business for her. More like a personal mission.
Yeah.
The sources say she deeply believes these books transformed her own life.
That makes a difference.
And that personal experience fuels her mission to share this universal wisdom, but, and this is key, in the language of our times. She's not just selling books. She's sharing tools she genuinely believes in because they worked for her. Now, one of the really interesting practical bits we found in the Amazon material is this section called How to Use These Books. It's Don Miguel Ruiz's own guide. He doesn't just give you the info. He actually says his books are alive and contain seeds to transform your life. That's a pretty active invitation to the reader, isn't it?
It really is. And what's insightful is he doesn't just leave you to figure it out. He gives a specific multi-step process designed to help you break those old agreements and habits. First step, read it fairly quickly. The goal isn't deep analysis yet. Just get the flow and spirit. Absorb the main message. Get the feel of it, like hearing the melody first.
And then the second read-through is deliberate, slower, for deeper absorption. Really understanding the nuances, like savoring it after the first taste. But the crucial step, the one he really hammers home, is practice. Active, consistent practice.
Practice makes the master.
Exactly. It's not enough to just read it and get it intellectually. You have to actively do it. Integrate these ideas into daily life. Like learning any skill requires repetition, application.
And this approach, it really highlights the difference between just knowing something and actually embodying it, mastering it. For anyone trying to learn and grow, this clear roadmap is super helpful. It bridges that gap between understanding and actually doing. Habit formation, transformation, it acknowledges change, takes effort, it takes shifting behavior.
But here's where it gets really interesting and kind of unique, the communal aspect. Ruiz actually suggests sharing these books with your coworkers, family, friends, lovers. That's different from a lot of self-help, which is often very individual.
Very much so.
The idea behind it is layered. Help each other practice, consciously create a new dream of communication based in love rather than fear, and practically speaking, stop the drama in your circles right away. It shifts the focus from just my growth to our growth, a shared journey.
That communal piece is, I think, incredibly important and often missed in self-help. And Ruiz goes further, suggesting forming groups to support each other in living these new principles. He promises this collective effort leads to faster, bigger changes for everyone involved. It recognizes that transformation is often easier, more sustainable, maybe more joyful when you do it with support. In community, it's about consciously changing how you interact, shifting from fear and misunderstanding to clear, loving communication. It's like a collective agreement to build a new reality together, creating an environment where these ideas can actually take root.
That idea of collective transformation is really powerful. It's not just about you, it's about changing the whole vibe of your relationships. Creating ripples of peace. I hope you're enjoying the topic so far. Please subscribe to the Deep Seek Diaries and like this video. Don't forget you can find us on the major social media platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Linked in the description section are all the resources in discussion today, including books, websites, and so on. Okay, let's get into the echo of experience now. How did this book actually land with real people? We're looking at those customer reviews again, and the numbers are just staggering. 4.5 out of 5 stars. From, what was it, over 112,000 global ratings That's a massive sample size. Speaks volumes.
And if you break down the stars, it's even more telling. 72% are 5-star. Another 17% are 4-star. Only tiny percentages for 3, 2, and 1 stars. So overwhelmingly positive reception. Huge impact. The AI summary pulls it together nicely. People consistently say it's easy to read, thought-provoking, life-changing, often called a practical, no-nonsense guide that brings peace. But importantly, the summary also flags some mixed reviews on pacing, and some people finding examples ridiculous. So not universally perfect for everyone.
Right, so let's dive into positives first, what really clicks with readers.
Yeah.
Readability is huge. You see phrases like highly readable, lovely little read, can be completed in a day. People appreciate that.
Makes it accessible.
Yeah, and well-written, clear, short, and punchy.
Yeah.
That ease of access is so important, especially if you want quick but thorough knowledge without getting bogged down. The core message gets through. Concise, but not shallow.
That clarity and conciseness are definitely key. Ruiz boils down these big, ancient ideas into digestible, actionable principles. You don't need a PhD to get it. And what's fascinating is how that simplicity ends up being so thought-provoking. People use strong words. No-nonsense guide to changing your life, change your outlook, free your mind. They call it a timeless spiritual guide, giving a sense of complete freedom. Phrases like incredibly earnest, clear, well-argued, and actually quite persuasive, or a roadmap to transforming one's life. It shows how these simple ideas spark deep shifts, help break those limiting beliefs. It's like an easy entry point to deep thinking.
And the outcome so many people talk about is tangible happiness and peace. The feedback is full of stuff like it makes them truly happy, leaves their hearts filled with peace, leads to a calm life. The book's tone gets described as gentle, encouraging, deeply spiritual. Readers call it a manual for living authentically and harmoniously, which leads to both internal peace and peace with others. It really sounds like this comforting guiding force for people navigating modern life.
That consistent feedback about peace and happiness really says a lot about the book's effectiveness. It addresses those core human needs for calm, for contentment. It strongly suggests that by actually doing these 4 simple things, people are finding a way to reduce that internal conflict, the mind chatter, the self-judgment, and improve their relationships. Which, those are the main ingredients for a good life, right? And the reviews suggest the book delivers.
But like we said, it's not all sunshine and roses. We need to look at the nuances, the criticisms too. The AI summary mentioned mixed reviews on pacing and some finding examples ridiculous.
Yeah, and that makes you wonder why ridiculous. It could be the Toltec context itself. It uses analogies, parables from a shamanic tradition. Maybe those don't always land with a modern, Western, literal mindset.
Could be.
What one person sees as a deep metaphor, someone else might find simplistic or just weird if they're expecting, say, scientific evidence or a more conventional self-help style. It shows the challenge of translating ancient wisdom across cultures and times. People have different ways of understanding, different lenses.
And then you get the really extreme end, like that 1-star review from Turkey. A set of quotes, not a book. Waste of paper, time, and money. Could have been 4 Post-its. Which is such a stark contrast to the overwhelming praise. Fascinating difference in perception.
That specific review really highlights the paradox, doesn't it? Most people find depth a life-changing guide. A few see it as just simplistic quotes. It could genuinely come down to expectations. What do you think a book of wisdom should be? Some want detailed philosophy, complex arguments. Others want concise, actionable principles they can grab onto easily. It's just a powerful reminder that how we receive any book is so subjective. Depends on our background, our learning style, what we're looking for right then. Classic perspective thing.
One of the most thoughtful reviews came from someone called Crumbledore. They raise gripes with the dismissal of trauma.
Yeah.
Which is a really relevant point today. With all the discussion around personal responsibility versus systemic issues, psychological trauma, Crumbledore presents it carefully.
Yeah, that's a critical point. And Crumbledore's interpretation is really insightful. They offer this devil's advocate view, suggesting Ruiz might not be talking about severe clinical trauma or abuse or systemic oppression, but maybe more about the trauma and discontent of our own making. That narrative of I'm a powerless victim of my situation that can sometimes take hold.
Ah, okay. So challenging self-victimization.
Exactly. It reframes the book's intent as urging people to recognize and reclaim their agency, their power to respond, even in tough situations. But it definitely raises that important question for all of us. How do we balance personal responsibility for our reactions with acknowledging real external factors or deep trauma that are outside our control? The book, seen this way, encourages finding where your actual power to respond does lie.
And Crumbledore made another great point. A book's impact is fluid and malleable. Depends on your level of engagement, your frame of mind, your time in your cycle, your employment status, the weather, all sorts of things.
So true.
It's such a balanced, compassionate view of growth. A reminder that transformation isn't linear or one size fits all. Where you are, internally and externally, really affects how you receive and apply wisdom like this.
That perspective is absolutely crucial. It highlights that no book, however good, is a magic wand. Its effectiveness is shaped by you, the reader, in that specific moment. It counters that idea of instant universal transformation and emphasizes growth as this ongoing, personal, dynamic process, influenced by so many things. It invites patience with yourself.
Lastly, Crumbledore mentioned how the book serves a broader spiritual curiosity, calling it a great jumping-off point for considering the nuances beyond the traditional polarity of atheism versus Christianity. That's significant today with so many people exploring spirituality outside traditional boxes.
Yeah, it directly taps into that evolving spiritual landscape. The book clearly appeals beyond typical self-help readers. It resonates with people who are increasingly open-minded about spirituality, maybe curious about animism or Buddhist ideas. It shows how the Four Agreements can feed that quest for knowledge, that desire for meaning, without forcing you into rigid debates or making you pick sides. That flexibility is really appealing, especially for learners who value exploration over dogma.
Okay, so we've unpacked the agreements, looked at the author's vision, analyzed the huge reader response. Let's talk about the ripple effect now, how this wisdom goes beyond just this one book. The journey doesn't stop with the Four Agreements. Don Miguel Ruiz, often with his son Don Jose Ruiz, kept expanding on these ideas in the Toltec Wisdom series. You've got other key books like the Fifth Agreement, a collaboration adding a new layer.
Builds right on the original four.
Then the Mastery of Love, looking at relationships, the Voice of Knowledge, about our internal agreements, the Four Agreements companion book with exercises, the Circle of Fire, about personal mastery.
And what's interesting is they aren't just repeating things, they genuinely deepen the exploration, allow readers to keep going, get more nuanced. Like the Fifth Agreement apparently talks about being skeptical, but also listening actively. That's a sophisticated take on being impeccable with your word, right?
Yeah, it's complexity.
This whole series provides this pathway for people really committed to integrating this wisdom deeply. It's like a curriculum for conscious living.
And it's not just books. The wisdom pops up in other products too, like the Four Agreements beaded bookmark or the Four Agreements cards. It creates this whole ecosystem around the ideas, makes them more tangible, part of daily life, like little physical reminders.
Those products tap into that desire for daily prompts, don't they? The cards could be great for reflection, setting intentions, starting conversations, makes abstract ideas more concrete, actionable, and it fits perfectly with Ruiz's emphasis on constant practice, keeping the wisdom alive, not just on the shelf, but in the moment. It's a bridge from reading to doing.
And for people who want even more structure, there are digital options. Janet Mills offers an online course, The Four Agreements for a Better Life, on thefouragreements.com. Gives a guided way to deepen their understanding and practice with lessons, exercises.
That's fascinating how wisdom gets shared now. An online course takes it beyond the book, offers structure, guidance, maybe community interaction. Great for learners who like step-by-step implementation, real-world examples. It shows how ancient wisdom can travel effectively through modern channels, reaching maybe a whole new audience online.
Finally, connecting it back to the broader self-help world. The Four Agreements sits really comfortably there. When you look at the customers who viewed this item also viewed on Amazon, you see books on mental performance, stopping overthinking, finding inner peace.
And that raises the question, why does this book resonate so much with people looking to stop overthinking, manage anxiety, find peace? I think it's because it directly addresses those common struggles, anxiety, self-doubt, conflict, relationship challenges, with a framework that's clear, actionable, and accessible. Its relevance to these universal issues makes it a foundational text for growth. It offers timeless principles that counter those mental traps so many of us fall into. It really shows how ancient wisdom, boiled down, can offer practical solutions for modern problems.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Four Agreements, it's really clear why it's had such lasting global appeal. Its power is in its simplicity, offering this straightforward yet profound code that can genuinely transform lives. It really is a foundational text for personal growth, promising and often delivering personal freedom, real happiness, lasting peace. At the end of the day, it's about taking responsibility for your inner world, the agreements you live by, and using that to consciously create a better outer reality.
Exactly. And as you think about everything we've discussed today, maybe consider this for yourself. How could really embracing just one of these agreements, acknowledging your word's power, refusing to take things personally, clarifying assumptions, or simply doing your best, how could that fundamentally shift just one important relationship in your life? Starting right now, today, the answer might be simpler and maybe more profound than you think.
I hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Deep Seek Diaries. Please don't forget to check out the link resources in the description section. Hit the subscribe and like buttons as you head off if you haven't already. Until the next episode, goodbye.